Hey, you there. You know the one with the 10 or 15 brackets, or the guy who only has one or two. This is the show for you, my friends. The madness is here, and I'm Stephen Rabinowitz.
I'm Jay Kaplan, proud graduate of the back-to-back defending regular season and tournament champions of the Big East, the St. John's University Red Storm. I'm looking forward to seeing how far Rick Pitino can take them this year in the
I'm
madness.
at, and I'm Anthony Strait, proud alumni of the House of Pride,
Oh,
making our
pride.
first NCAA tournament appearance in 25 years, our first tournament game in 25 years this Friday, and it's against my mom's hometown college, University of Alabama. So, bold pride, baby.
We will talk a lot more about that. This is our 2026 March Madness preview, presented and sponsored by no one. All right, tonight we go region to read by region, half by half, quarter by quarter, eighth by eighth. Wait, that would just be every game. Never mind.
Yeah.
As we help you fill out your soon to be 64 team bracket at 65 as of what I'm speaking right now, as we tip off the official games of the first round, not even 14 hours from now. Like and subscribe to our facebook.com/on the sports lines pages and youtube.com/on the sports lines pages to look back at last year's picks. And if you are Bruce Pearl, like and subscribe to You're Not an Analyst at auburnsucks.com. Like only basketball, Sean Roman, don't worry. Just more Bruce Pearl stuff. Don't I respect Auburn. Okay. Tonight's game plan. We'll take you through each of the four regions. Jay will take one half. Anthony will take the other. They'll tell you if they see the number one, the 1 and 2 seeds in the region go chalky chalk into the Elite Eight. I will rebound all the bad takes from these two, like my name was Mitchell Robinson, and also give you a dark horse and matchup to watch from each region. And then, God help us all, we'll all make Final Four picks.
Dun dun
Gonna
dun.
bounce around and we'll start out in the South where the region will end at Houston. Keep that in mind for later. This region has all the prestige of tournament mainstays like UNC, Houston, and defending national champion Florida, and the This Ain't Your Father's group of teams like Clemson, Vanderbilt, and of course, Nebraska ball. And some people think top seed Florida's route to getting to Indianapolis is not an easy one. Some people think it's the hardest. Some people think that's Duke. We'll talk about them in a second. But with teams in the top half of the South, like the last team to beat them in the aforementioned Vandy, do you see the road for the Gators clear, at least until the Elite Eight?
Well, I don't. I wouldn't put it in the same category as Duke, and obviously Jay would handle that in our next segment. But it is interesting, and to talk about the defending champs. You have a team that finished the season 26-7. Unfortunately, they fell short of repeating as conference champions. But look at this team though. The thesis team is the elite defense and the rebounding. They're led by Coach Todd Golden's team. Think about this. They lost the entire starting backcourt from last year's national championship team. And here they go yet again has the we're the fourth one seed that kind of that kind of got that final one seed bid that opened up when UConn, the team I'm going to be talking about in the next segment, fell in the final weekend of the regular season. But they're led by Thomas Hall, 17.2 points per game, 6 rebounds a game. Ruben Chinadu averaged a double-double and is a candidate for National Defensive Player of the Year honors, along with Alex Condon, Xavier Lee, and Bogan Flang. This is a team that shoots 59% from two, 38% from three, and is really loaded and one of the best defensive teams in the league. If they do have an off night, it's because they're not the best outside shooting team. They're very inconsistent, shooting only 30.8% from the field. Now when you look at their end of the bracket, they take on Prairie View A&M, who won their first four tournament game earlier this season before we went on the air. So I can pencil that in. I think they'll win that game pretty easily. The 8-9 matchup between Clemson and Iowa, that winner of that game could be a bit of a challenge. But when you look further down into this region, the biggest test may not be until the Sweet 16 when you look at the Gators' road back to the Final Four. But they could potentially see Vanderbilt, maybe a fourth seed North Carolina Tar Heel team down the line if it's potentially go chalk. But the biggest thing is on the other end of that bracket. And you mentioned Houston being a two seed and this region being later on taking place in Houston, which would be a de facto home game. But if there is one caveat for the Florida Gators, it's the fact that they've been a really good road team all season. Um, Obviously, a hostile road environment wouldn't bother them. So look at this, how the bracket breaks down for them. I see that they have maybe a challenge in the Sweet 16, but I do see the path to them getting back to the Final Four coming out this end of the region.
Well, the one thing about that path that's interesting, considering the Vandy game where they were just ice cold, take it for how it was for them in that game. But otherwise, like I said, that's an interesting 4-5 in that Nebraska Vanderbilt line. I mean, you have some possible bracket busters there, but it seems like Florida may have gotten their bad game out. We'll see as the first weekend progresses. All right, so Jay, as the 2 seed Houston Cougars look to win 2 games, just like they did last week in the Big 12 championship, to get into the Toyota Center in Houston. How does this side of the bracket with Illinois and St. Mary's look for the Cougars' chances to take the long road to Houston?
Is there a team on more of a mission in this tournament than the Houston Cougars? I mean, after falling short in last year's national title game on an unforced error, Kelvin Sampson brings one of the toughest teams from arguably the nation's toughest conference, runners-up in the Big 12, to the big dance with the potential for home games as they look to get back to the Final Four. The first thing up is number 15, Idaho. Houston is the top number 2 seed in the tournament, and it's a perfect spot for last year's runner-up to start their road back to the Final Four, which will make a stop, as Rabbi said, in the second round in their backyard at the Toyota Center in Houston. The Cougars get to have potentially 2 de facto home games due to the fact that Rice University, also located in Houston, is the actual host school for those games. Idaho's an interesting first-round matchup as the Vandals have 4 players who shoot better than 35% from 3, which is a key for a team that relies so heavily on it, as 38% of their points come off of triples. The issue is that the threes aren't falling. They don't have much else in their toolkit to generate offense. 237th in offensive rebound rate, 271st in defensive turnover rate, 187th in free throw rate allowed. Add to that being 200th in the nation in terms of team height, and Idaho's first trip to the big dance in 36 years will be short and likely not sweet against the Cougars. Kelvin Sampson still has the core of that team that made it to the national title game last season. Guards Emmanuel Sharp, 15.3 points, 37% from 3. Milos Ujan, 11 points per game, 4 assists. A pair of solid perimeter defenders and proven under pressure three-point shooters, along with big man Joseph Tugler. 8 points, 5 boards, 1.4 steals, 1.5 blocks. The reigning Big East Defensive 12 Player of the Year, who is the linchpin of a unit that is top 5 in adjusted defensive efficiency and best at preventing points in the paint all return. To that core, Sampson added quite possibly the most talented player he's had since coming to Houston in freshman point guard Kingston Flemings. Projected NBA lottery pick, 16.4 points per game, 5.3 assists. He's shooting 39.2 from beyond the arc. His 42-point effort in a loss to Texas Tech was a school record for a freshman. And while Houston is worse overall from 3 this season compared to last, 34.9 to 39, they make up for it, as most of Sampson's teams do, by forcing turnovers. 21% of opponents' possessions end that way. Good for 12th best in the nation to create easy points while not giving the ball away themselves, just 13% of their own possessions. Good for 4th in the nation. The concern for the Cougars is that they're dead last in the nation in percentage of shots that come at the rim and are 355th in free throw rate. But if their shot makers are making their shots, starting with Emmanuel Sharp, who's get out of this rut he's in, who is looking to atone for the fumble on the final possession of last year's title game, and their defense plays like we've come accustomed to, the Cougars can go a long way. The next 2 games is kind of where things get interesting in this bracket. You've got Illinois as the 3 seed against number 14 Penn. The Ivy League champs, led by former 5-star forward TJ Power, Ivy League's top three-point shooter in the regular season, over 43%. Second on the team in scoring at 16.8. He dropped 44, including 7 of 14 from three in the Ivy tournament final. And if the Quakers get leading scorer Ethan Roberts, almost 17 a game, and over 40% from three back for the NCAAs. He missed the conference tournament with a concussion. Then the team that was 12th in the nation in three-point shooting percentage, a little under 39%, could give the Illini a run for their money. But in the end, I think Illinois, number 2 in the nation in adjusted offensive efficiency and number 3 in offensive rebound rate, led by star freshman guard Keaton Wagler, set almost 18 points a game, 4.8 rebounds, 4.4 assists, shooting over 40% from three, and freshman forward David Mirkovich, 15 points a game, 6.8 boards, 2.9 assists since the start of February. Will be too much for the Quakers and too much for any other team in their pod. Yes, their defense or lack thereof is an issue, though it has risen to number 41 in adjusted efficiency over the past month. But in 9 of the last 10 NCAA tournaments, the nation's best offensive team advanced to the Elite Eight or beyond. The 6-11 matchup between my North Carolina Tar Heels and number 11 VCU, well, as much as it pains me as a diehard Tar Heel fan to say it, the college basketball analyst in me knows that this is an upset in the making. This is largely due to UNC being minus star freshman forward Caleb Wilson, their leading scorer and rebounder, 19.8 points, 9.4 boards. Yes, the Heels, who come into the NCAAs with the number 32 ranked defense and adjusted efficiency, went 5-2 without him in the regular season. Yes, Arizona transfer Henri Vassar stepped up, averaging over 15 points, almost 7 boards, and shooting almost 60% from the floor in the final 6 weeks of the regular season, and dropping a 28.17 rebound double-double in the ACC tournament loss to Clemson. But Wilson's absence leaves a gaping hole on both sides of the floor. Losing his ability to create shots for himself and his teammates like Vassar, their big-to-big, high-low passing was sublime, and senior guard Seth Trimble is a big reason UNC struggled from three. Losing Wilson's 7.5 free throw attempts hurt, as well as he was the only one getting to the line at high volume and making a decent percentage, 71.3. Overall, the Heels ranked 313th in the nation in free throw rate. All of this is why the Heels are ranked number 49 overall on Bart Tarvik over the final month before the postseason. Not where you want to be going against a VCU team coming into the NCAA on a heater, winning 13 of their last 14, entering the A10. Rams aren't the helter-skelter defensive team they were under Shaka Smart. Phil Martelli Jr. has built a more well-rounded team led by 6'11 Serbian forward Lazar Djokovic, 13.5 points, 5 boards, 1.2 blocks, 35.6 from three. Per Evan Maya, VCU's 10.3 points per 100 possessions better with him on the floor. Leading scorer Terrence Hill, 14 a game, is their sixth man. VCU is one of the best high mid-major programs in the nation, top 50 in adjusted offensive efficiency, top 70 in adjusted defensive efficiency. They knock down their threes, where 44% of their shots come from, at almost 37%, number 35 in the nation, and their free throws, which account for more than 23% of their points, at 74%. Their defense still has remnants of the old days. They challenge on the perimeter, get into the passing lanes, keep teams under a 50% effective field goal percentage. The Rams' weakness is they don't get on the glass. 113th in offensive rebound rate, 51st in defensive rebound rate. But UNC is less of a problem in that area without Wilson. I would not be surprised if the Rams win here, but I think that's as far as they go. As for the St. Mary's Texas A&M 7-10 game, it's an interesting matchup for folks trying to win their office pool. You guys know the numbers. 10 seeds win approximately 39% of the time. And it'll likely be a competitive game between two decent teams. Gales have a top flight D. They allow less than per possession. They finish top 15 in effective field goal defense. Their offense is number 1 in the nation in free throw rate, over 81%. They shoot their threes at almost 39%, 13th. They rebound their misses at almost 38%. That's number 12. They have a solid trio in forward Paulius Maraskis, almost 19 a game. Guard Mikey Lewis, 14 a game, 22.6 in his last 5. And point guard Josh Dent, 13 points and almost 6 assists, 40% from three. The Aggies have Texas A&M has a top 15 offense in terms of adjusted efficiency. Forward Rashawn McGee is their guy, 14.7 points, almost 9 boards. They can beat you in a variety of ways offensively, and they're solid from beyond the arc. They were 3rd in this SEC from three-point range, and they don't turn the ball over. But despite having a top 45 defense in terms of adjusted efficiency, they can't seem to stop anyone. They gave up 74, almost 80 points a game, 13th in the SEC. And in their 8 losses in quad one, that went up to almost 90. Add to that the glaring red flag. Specific to this matchup, Aggies ranked 308th in the nation in free throw percentage allowed. Not what you want to have going against a team that hits the best from the line. Gale should advance no further than here. And all of that is just me taking the long way around to what should be an immovable object versus irresistible force clash between Houston and Illinois for the right to go to the regional final, where this is the potential for Houston, as Anthony noted, to have that revenge game against defending champion Florida. But this time it'll be in their house in Houston. The Cougars will have to get past Illinois, who, as previously noted, is really good at scoring the basketball in a variety of ways. But they're going against a Cougars team that is really good at stopping teams from scoring and brings an improved offense as well. This game could be the very definition of a coin flip. 4 of Illinois' 8 losses came in OT, so they're better than their record, and they're due for their late game luck to flip. Kylan Boswell could make Kingston Flemings uncomfortable, mucking up Houston's ability to execute that improved offense, which could lead them to adding another loss to their 2-5 record against Ken Palm top 20 teams. But at the end of the day, I don't think Illinois has enough defense to stop Houston's offense and get past a Cougars team that is A, playing at home, and 2, on that mission, which is why I think Kelvin Sampson's team comes out of the bottom half of this bracket.
4-5, by the way, for Illinois in their last 9. So, and the wins are pretty much every quality team that they play. Their only wins are against teams that haven't even made the didn't even make the NCAA tournament this year. But just be aware, A&M and Houston have played very close games. If A&M can get past St. Mary's, I know this is before Buckyball and their new head coach that just started off with them this year in Texas A&M, but I would not be surprised if this is a harder road for Houston than possible, but we'll talk about our Final Four picks in just a little bit. Okay, so I have 2 things to give to you guys. Number 1, a dark horse in each lead. I'm going to define it myself as a 5 or below, and then I'll talk about the matchup from the first round. So you say 5 or below because it's easy just to say, hey, here's the 5 seed, and this is more like an underrated 4 seed. And that's Vandy. We kind of talked about them earlier. They started this year 16-0 and then lost 3 in conference to Texas, Florida, and Arkansas. Then they killed Mississippi State by 28, but they lost Duke Miles for nearly a month. They lost Frankie Collins, their ball hawking guard, in early March, but they came back, started to make a little bit of a run, closed their season with consecutive road wins, and essentially knocked off Tennessee twice in pretty much 6 days, winning in their season finale in Tennessee and then winning in the conference opener. But the one game that has everyone going in to everybody was the fact that they won 91-74 against the Florida team, number 1 team in this region, and possible regional Sweet 16 opponent who had won 17 of 18 going in. They led by 25 in the second half of that game. And they have just been insane. In that game, they started that game 16-0 run, just having so many fast break layups and dunks. And they are, what's interesting about Vanderbilt is they are, again, we're going to see this a lot. Teams that you don't think are fast are really fast. And this is one of the country's fastest tempo games. And towards the end of their season, they played only one. They were one of the fastest tempo games. They only played 1 sub-72 possession game in their first dozen games of the season. 88-69 win over SMU, the team that is currently playing right now. But most of the game, once this team kind of got back to its health, they wanted to kind of make sure that they were kind of the team that you're going to see now. They started becoming even more slower tempo, a 62 possession game against Tennessee in the SEC tournament, a 64 possession game against Florida. But when they go out and run, they can kill the other opponent on turnovers. They forced 14 turnovers against Florida. Did that a little bit against Arkansas, but Arkansas protects the ball, so that didn't really help out too much. Tyler Tanner, first team All-SEC pick for this Vandy Commodores team, all defensive selection. He is, per Ken Palm's algorithm, the SEC's second best player, ranked outside the top 10 nationally in the same measure. He was able to take over games all the season long, had 37 and 27-point efforts, respectively, in almost wins against Missouri and Oklahoma, and had 34 in an overtime win against Ole Miss. Duke Miles, when healthy, can be better than that. He had a 30-point SEC tournament showing in that quarterfinal against Tennessee, only missed 3 shots from the field. And then you have Duke Miles, and he was just outstanding at points this year as well, having the country's 4th best steal rate. Vanderbilt is 7th nationally in adjusted offensive efficiency at KenPom. They shoot all over the floor. They're almost 80% from the foul line. No weak links in that team. In their top 6 in minutes, their worst shooter only shoots 74.1% from the line. So the problem is Vanderbilt is undersized at times. That's a little bit of a problem. You can have trouble with them, but if Vanderbilt plays the way they did, they played very well in that SEC championship game, even though they lost to Arkansas. I could see Vanderbilt going far. The matchup that I have coming out of this region is LSU and Iowa. I'm sorry, Clemson and Iowa. They have a 6:50 start this Friday coming up. The Tigers, Clemson, big and well coached, but the Hawkeyes have Bennett Sturts. He is one of the best shot makers of college basketball. 20.2 points, 3.4 rebounds, 5.1 assists, and they won a game in last year's NCAA tournament versus Drake. So it's not like they don't have any experience here. They do. Ben McCollum, the second-year head coach of Iowa. He was from Drake, got him to come over, but Sturts plays 37.5 minutes per game and is one of 5 most valuable players to his team in college basketball. On the other side, Anthony, you know Brad Brownell very well. He used to coach at UNC Wilmington. He seems like he's been in Clemson forever. This is their 3rd straight NCAA tournament, and they've never been lower than where they are now, as an 8 seed. They have a chance. Dylan Hunter is the guy who will provide the tempo on this team. Their highest scorers are RJ Godfrey, who averages 10 points a game. However, their other big guy, Carter Welling, will not be here because he tore his ACL in the ACC tournament. Justin Porter is the primary scorer out of those 2 men. Middle Tennessee transfer, shooting 34% beyond the arc this year. Bit of a down year, averaging just 10 points per game, average 15 points per season. Both of these teams average 75 points per game, but because of the stylist clashing here, this might be a low-scoring game. This might be one of those games that is kind of grinded out, first team to 60. That's the case. You might get a little bit of a prize fight Friday night in this game, but it'll be interesting to see how these 2 teams face each other, and then watch and see Florida most likely win their first round game, leading to a Sunday matchup. So we'll see what happens, but that's the kind of matchup I'm interested in seeing on Friday night. All right, let us move on to the East bracket. Do you like coaches? Do you like coaches old enough that they can be president of the United States of the America? Do you like coaches old enough that they can be president of the United States of America? Well, welcome to the East region. We have 3 Hall of Fame coaches here in Tom Izzo, Bill Self, and Rick Pitino. 2-time national champion coach and everyone's favorite Dan Hurley. Coaches who have been taking multiple teams to the NCAA tournament in Louisville's Pat Kelsey. TCU's Jamie Dixon, and Mick Cronin of UCLA, that ball of sunshine. And John Shire, who is well on his way to doing things at Duke that his predecessor, Coach K, did. Yeah, that's a lot of coaches. Let's just move on. Yeah, Duke is the overall number 1 seed, but to at least get out of this half of the bracket, they have some speed bumps ahead of them, including 2 that you know very well in this region. Buckle up in St. John's and Kansas. Duke escape to a regional in Washington, D.C., and at least get to the regional final.
Yeah, the committee did the number 1 overall seed no favors. As you noted, the East region is stacked. 6 teams in this bracket have won multiple national championships. Number 1 seed Duke has 5. Number 2 seed UConn has 6. Number 3 seed Michigan State has 2. Number 4 seed Kansas has 4. Number 6 seed Louisville has 3. And number 7 seed UCLA has 11, though they haven't had too many. Most of those were well before we were born. And
Speak for yourself there, buddy, if I'm not
not too many, very few of them. Most of them occurred before we were born. And 6 coaches who have made a combined 23 Final Four appearances. Luckily, if that's even the right word for it, for the Blue Devils, only Kansas is in their half of the bracket, and the other 3 teams are in the bottom half. However, they will likely have to get past one of 2 Hall of Fame head coaches in the Sweet 16. Luckily, again, not sure if that's the right word, those 2 are in the same pod, so the Blue Devils will only have to deal with the one who advances. Let's start with their first round matchup against number 16, Siena. I don't see how the Saints, led by Syracuse legend Jerry McNamara, go marching past the Blue Devils. Yes, it's possible that Siena, back in the big dance for the first time since 2010, can hang with the number 1 overall seed for a half by doing what they do best, playing lockdown defense. Siena surrendered just 57.7 points per game over the 3-game MAAC tournament, nearly 10 points below their regular season average of 66.5, after holding opponents in the regular season to 49.7% effective field goal percentage. They have a star player in unanimous first-team All-MAAC selection, Gavin Doty, who averaged 17.5 points and 7 boards in the regular season, increased his scoring to 21.7 with 6.7 boards in the tournament. But Siena's ability to get it done from deep, they rank outside the top 300 in three-point percentage, will be one of the reasons that Duke will advance. The other, bigger reason, is the likely player of the year, Duke's 6'9" double-double machine, 22.7 points and 10.2 boards, freshman forward Cameron Boozer, who is on track to end this season with the highest offensive rating in KenPom history, going all the way back to 2003, 2004. The Blue Devils bring a top 6 offense and the top-ranked defense into the tournament, and that defense is dominant. They pressure the ball, you can't beat them with screen actions, and they protect the paint, all while keeping their opponents from getting second shot opportunities. On offense, their ability to utilize the passing abilities of their bigs, Boozer, Patrick Ngongba II, Duke hopes to have their best rim protector back for the NCAAs, and Malik Brown, to pull opposing bigs away from the basket and open up cutting lanes for high percentage shots and skip passes to create open threes. Though their production from beyond the arc will suffer a little with the season-ending loss of point guard Caleb Foster, arguably the 3rd most impactful player on the offense, who hit his threes at a 40% clip and was a menace at the point of attack on defense, to a broken foot on March 7th. Isaiah Evans will need to step up his scoring from the 14.5 points per game he's averaged. Foster's injury also puts more on the plate of Caden Boozer, Cam's twin brother, who averaged 6.8 points and 2.8 assists, but with a disconcerting 19.9 turnover rate. He's now going to have more responsibility in the running of the Duke offense as the starting point guard. Their potential second-round matchup is the winner of the 8-9 game between Ohio State and TCU. I'm not going to dive too deep into this. Both teams could give Duke a bit of a test, as both have gone through the crucible that is the regular season in 2 of the toughest conferences in the nation, the Big Ten and the Big 12. Buckeyes, one of the best shooting teams in the Big Ten. They knocked down their shots at 49.7% from the floor, number 3, 36.1% from beyond the arc, tied for 4th. They're led by a solid backcourt, sophomore John Mobley, knocks down his threes at a little over 42%. And senior Bruce Thornton, the Buckeyes' all-time leading scorer, 20.2 points per game, number 3 in the Big Ten. TCU, on the other hand, like most Jamie Dixon coach squads, they hang their head on tough defense, top 30 unit in adjusted defensive efficiency. They force turnovers in almost 20% of opponents' possessions, 5th best among power conference teams. They defend the paint. Their block rate is a really solid 12.6%. However, the Buckeyes struggle on defense. Their effective field goal percentage, 117th, turnover rate, 231st, defensive rebound percentage, 156, while the Horned Frogs struggle on offense. Field goal percentage, 200th, 3-point percentage, 222nd, free throw rate, 244th. You can't beat Duke if you can only bring it from one side of the ball. Combined, they'd be formidable. Alone, they're simply the Blue Devils' second win of the tournament, no matter which one advances. And that brings us to the next matchup. And as much as we like to talk about 12 seeds upsetting number 5 seeds, and as much as some folks in Lawrence may still be annoyed about the Jayhawks bombing out in the first round as a 4 seed or better in back-to-back years, '05 and '06, I don't see either scenario happening here. So I'm just going to go straight to the game that is most likely to have folks in Durham a wee bit concerned, and that's this matchup between those two Hall of Fame coaches, Bill Self of Kansas, the 4 seed, and Rick Pitino of Big East champ St. John's, the 5 seed. If you're a college basketball fan, this is the second round matchup of the tournament. If you're me, this is two of my favorite teams, one being my alma mater, St. John's, playing the other in way too early a round. Both teams are solid defensively. Jayhawks, top 15 in the nation, 6 different categories during the regular season. Points per possession allowed, 2-point percentage defense, 3-point percentage defense, and block rate, led by Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year, Flory Badunga. The Johnnies, Big East #1 defense, ranking in the top 3 in the conference in every major stat and metric. Adjusted defensive efficiency, effective field goal percentage defense, turnover rate, offensive rebound rate allowed, which basically means defensive rebound rate, 2-point percentage allowed, block rate, led by the Big East Defensive Player of the Year, Zuby Ejiofor. They keep teams off the offensive glass. They run you off the 3-point line and put a body on you for the full 40 minutes. The Jayhawks have one of the singular offensive talents in the game in freshman guard Darren Peterson, who averaged 19.8 points per game and shot 38% from 3. The question is, will he play? And if so, how many minutes? He missed 11 games this season and major parts of others due to a myriad of injuries and cramping issues. He's been healthy down the stretch, playing in 18 of the final 20 games. Over the last 7 of the regular season and the 2 games into the Big 12 tournament, he logged at least 28 minutes in each of them, scoring 18.7 points per game, but he shot just 37.8% from the floor and just 33.3% from deep. Jayhawks went 4-5. The Johnnies front court of Ejiofor, also the Big East Player of the Year, and leads the team with 16 points, 7 boards, and 3.5 dimes, plus 2 blocks. Dylan Mitchell and Bryce Hopkins form one of the best front courts in the nation, which will cause trouble for Kansas and potentially Duke. Yes, St. John's struggles to shoot, 222nd in the nation's 3-point percentage, but they force turnovers, get second chance opportunities, 27th in offensive rebounds per game, 28th in offensive rebound rate, and they live at the charity stripe, 15th in free throw attempts per game, 35th in free throw rate, with Ejiofor and Hopkins combining for over 12 free throw attempts per game. I think the committee should have flipped these two, as the kids from Queens, the back-to-back regular season and conference champs, should have been the 4 seed. I think they advanced, setting up an epic Sweet 16 match with Duke, where we'll see Ejiofor and Boozer bang all game. #1 Duke versus #5 St. John's. The Johnnies have enough to get past the Jayhawks, especially with their lack of depth. Kansas' rotation rarely goes beyond 7. St. John's routinely runs out 8 and sometimes 9, and they will battle Duke for the full 40 minutes. SJU can match up with Duke in both the front court and back court, and Rick Pitino will likely have a few tricks up his well-dressed sleeve to make things uncomfortable with Duke with the way the Johnnies can pressure the ball and defend the full 94 feet, especially at the point of attack with Dylan Darling, who is an absolute pest. But if St. John's struggles to knock down their outside shots, allowing Duke to pack the paint and make it tough for the Johnnies to get the ball inside to Ejiofor, which will prevent him from getting Duke's bigs into foul trouble, then all St. John's will be is the opponent who toughens the Blue Devils up a little bit while they wait for whomever comes out of the bottom half of the region.
We'll talk about the bottom half of the region in a second. By the way, Patrick Ngangba not playing tomorrow, most likely. I'm going to assume he will be ready for Sunday.
You and me both.
Unless they think that is an easy opponent in 2, and if it's TCU or Ohio State, and I'll talk about that matchup in a minute. Getting all of the little nuggets that Jay may have not touched on his point. Doesn't talk anything about the 2 teams of Cal Poly and Northern Iowa, but decides to go more on Ohio State and TCU. Thanks, Jay.
Hey, I tell you.
Yeah, whatever. Okay. Moving on now to the bottom half of the bracket, where UConn is the #2 seed in the East, and they are not coming in hot to this spot. Since February, they've lost twice to St. John's at MSG, and I was in the building for the second time. I am a little bitter. Don't talk to me. Lost at a fledgling Marquette at the end of the season to lose a chance to share the regular season title, and lost at home to a not your father's Creighton. So to all of the haters last 2 months, good job. So now a team projected for the one line for most of the year comes into the tournament without any conference title preseason or post, and a lot more questions. But Anthony, the ultimate question is UConn going to make it to the Elite Eight out of their side of the bracket?
I'll tell you what, for a team that has won two of the last three national championships and have a great head coach in Dan Hurley, this is a team that really does have the most question marks of any of the one or two seeds coming into this tournament. And it's because of how they finished the regular season and and obviously the conference tournament. You was there, the Big East championship game. How that game played out is what left leaves so many questions. Now you look at when you look at UConn, they only have really one guy left over from those championship teams, and that's Alex Caravan. But he's one of the three one of the four all Big East selections where he did Silas DeMary, Terrence Reed as well. Braylon Mullins is um first team all fresh Big East freshman. Yeah, five players that averaging double figures. They were the best shooting team percentage wise in the Big East this season at 48.4%. The second best defensive team in the Big East Conference behind Seton Hall. They went a team that went 7-3 in quad one games. The only loss really coming to a one seed in Arizona, and of course the two losses to St. John's. This is a team that you would think would be kind of an automatic going into the Elite Eight at the least. But then there is the way they finished down the stretch that brings the question marks. They were 7-4 after a 22-1 start. A bad loss to Creighton, as you mentioned. The Marquette game was an absolute stinker when they had an opportunity and maybe an inside track on one of the four one seeds. Had they been able to complete and get the share of the regular season title and finish off the winning the Big East Conference Championship tournament. That didn't happen. That game, the shot is 36% from the field, 13% from behind the three-point arc overall. And then there's the free throw percentage, only 71%. That's 233rd ranked in the country. And then there is the game you was at, Rabbi, and that is the Big East Conference Championship game. And what disturbing is not the fact that they lost, and we was going back and forth during that game. It's how they lost. St. John's bullied the hell out of them in that game. I'm just gonna cut through the red table as one.
Need to be a neutral analyst here.
Yeah, they got bullied. I mean, that's just pretty much what it is. From start to finish. And it seemed like every time UConn thought they were getting back to this game, the Red Storm just pretty much had an answer. The Johnnies just never let up on the gas pedal. And if you are a team that is trying to get back to the top of the mountain, to go out in that fashion in pretty much a thud, not the way you want to go into the tournament. Now, the path going into the path to get back to the Final Four, they'll play number 15 Furman Friday night. I think they'll win that game. 7-10 UCLA and UCF should be a bit of a challenge because both colleges are very good offensively. Not exactly good defensively. I do think UConn has enough of both to get past the winner of that matchup. The big chance though is going to be the Sweet 16. And the possibility of playing Sparty at the number 3 seed Michigan State Spartans. And we talk about this every year. You never want to bet against Tom Izzo under any circumstances, but they are a physical team that rebound, that defend. They can turn the game into the rock fight in a heartbeat. And it just think about this. You can't handle the Johnnies, a team you played 3 times. You actually beat once out of those 3 times. When it comes to the physicality, how are you going to be able to solve Sparty when things don't go too well and the shots aren't falling? And the thing is, and with Dan Hurley, he's going to have to rely on that experience, at least in winning those championships to try to get out of that matchup. That's going to be a tough, really tough matchup in the Sweet 16. If they ever get through that, then there's obviously the Elite Eight, where it could be Duke on the other end of that, at the end of that special. It could be one of the other teams. It could be the Johnnies because St. John's has been that good. Even when the shots aren't falling, a tough defensive-minded team is always hard to play, especially in a tournament when they tend to slow down and the pressure is on when you go through those long streaks of not scoring. This is going to be a really tough road for the Huskies to get back, to get to the Final Four, to get out of this end of the bracket because of what's await them in the Sweet 16, but also just what could possibly be waiting for them at on the other end, in the Elite Eight, just to get out of this region. Um, wow, UConn's got a tough sled to try to get back to the Final Four for the third time in 4 years.
So the interesting thing about that side of the bracket is the fact that you have a lot of teams have a lot of questions actually almost all over the bracket. Louisville is almost an underdog right now to USF, who we'll talk about in a second. And Louisville really struggled at the end of their season. Michigan State, Jeremy Fears is a pain in the ass to almost everybody out there. It is a 9 assist per game player, scores 16 points a game, and can just bug the hell out of you. But Michigan State's been inconsistent towards the end of the year, especially after their loss to UCLA. UCLA actually might be the most dangerous team going in because they're about to get their big star back in Tyler Bilodeau, and they just had their big player, Donovan Dent, who looks like he'll be healthy for the Friday night game. He had the first ever triple-double in Big Ten tournament history, and that history goes back to 1994. So it's a very interesting side of the region, and I do think if you had to put a gun to my head right now, we'll talk about it in a little bit, but I do think the top of the bracket is a little bit stronger. But the bottom of the bracket has USF. And if you're going to talk about USF, let's talk about that team for just a moment. They're an interesting bunch of people. They destroyed the AAC. They have their first tournament. They have their first ticket to the tournament since 2011, 2012. But even though it's the first time in 14 years, only a 5-loss team from this year. And this is the first time in program history that they won their conference regular season and tournament titles. They are one of the hottest teams in America. So 25-8. Their head coach, Brian Hodgson, just said no to the Syracuse head coaching job. He could still possibly be a candidate for the Providence head coaching job. Hodgson is a former assistant at Alabama under Nate Oates, and that Bulls offense now averages over almost 88 points a game and only allows 75.5. They had balanced scoring with inside and outside options. Wes Ennis, one of 5 double-figure scorers of this game, 16.8 points per game. He's at 107 three-pointers this year. 6'10" Isaiah Nelson, 15.7 points and a team best 9.6 rebounds a game. Joseph Pinion, 106 three-pointers, 14.2 points per game. And Josh Omajafo, 11.5 points per game. CJ Brown, 11.1 points, 158 assists. According to KenPom, 15th in tempo. They have 71.5 possessions per 40 minutes. It's an interesting game for them against Louisville. That game is actually tomorrow, one of the first games of the tournament at 1:30. A lot of people, like Louisville looks good at times, but again, they have struggled a lot this season, especially in key moments. Didn't look too great in the ACC tournament. South Florida could be a dangerous team if they get past Louisville and possibly find themselves with the Dayton Sparty in the round of 32. Could be very interesting. I'm going to be boring and go with another 8-9 matchup with my game to watch, though. And it's going to literally be the first tip of the NCAA tournament. It tips tomorrow at 12:15, and that is this TCU Ohio State game. Bruce Thornton, very rarely do you become the highest, a 4-year senior, become the highest scorer of all time, the most prolific scorer of all time at your very big college, and never play an NCAA tournament game until this very moment, which is what is going to happen tomorrow. Ohio State's actually been interesting. They've played a lot of good opponents. They're only 4-10 against tournament opponents this year, but both these teams are very good. TCU has also played very difficult. They played Florida, Michigan State, Arizona, Houston, Iowa State. They're 2-3 of those games, but they also destroyed Florida and Iowa State in that game. TCU has David Punch, 14.3 points, 6.7 rebounds per contest. And Xavier Edmonds, 12.6 points per game, 6.6 rebounds. You mentioned it. Jamie Dixon took Pittsburgh to the tournament 11 out of 13 years. He's now had some consistency with TCU himself. Horned Frogs, they're just about outside the top 50, but they are very good. They get almost 12.5 offensive rebounds a game. TCU, with their late season run, had extra possessions a bunch with 55 offensive rebounds in 11 games. Back to Ohio State, they're just an interesting team. They, again, seeing John Mobley Jr., 15.6 points per game, Devin Royal, 13.7 points per game, and it's going to be about Bruce Thornton. Thornton's going to be a guy who might just make a name for himself from the very first moment of this tournament. And if that happens, I think it'll be an interesting story, and Ohio State and Duke could very possibly be a much more interesting 32 matchup than you would think. I mean, again, when it comes down to the day, it's the sixth best team in the Big 12 versus the eighth best team in the Big 10. But they are the two best conferences in America this year outside of the SEC. Some people might agree in one way, some people might agree the other way. But those two teams are battle tested, and I'm very interested to see how they play tomorrow. On to the Midwest region, where the Michigan Wolverines' losses have been few and far between. 3, in fact. And due to that, let's not talk about that loss to Purdue on Sunday and move on. Shut up. Keep going. Okay. They're the third overall number one, and they get a mixed bag of teams in this region. A Texas Tech team without a Wooden Award favorite in Jacob Toppin, an Alabama team whose number 2 scorer just got arrested, and a St. Louis team who looked a lot better when you had 3 feet of snow on the ground outside. Is this a recipe for a Michigan escape from the top half of the Midwest?
I'll tell you what, Michigan of the first 4 of the 4 1 seeds may be the most complete of the 4 seeds. And by the way, I apologize with the candy in my mouth. I do have a bit of a cough. I don't know if you guys heard me kind of wheezing off, while I'm not talking. I've been dealing with a cold the last few weeks, and I just have a bit of a cough, so I've been trying to get rid of that. But besides the point, the Wolverines, they have it all. They have size, the speed. They're pretty much they pretty much up until that Big Ten championship game kind of steamrolled their opponents for the most part. They finished in top 10 in efficient field goal percentage, offense and defense. Second chance point. They're steadfast in generating second chance points. Addy Mara, Morris Johnson Jr., Clark Pointer, so who does a good job at that. They shot a 61.62 point percentage prior to the postseason. They locked down defensively a mere 0.892 points per possession. They're an unselfish team, and they're a team that I can see why so many people are kind of high on. Now, obviously, they don't have many flaws. However, the one of the flaws they do turn the ball over a lot. They are 187 overall in the nation in turnover rate, and that has been without LJ Caston, who has an ACL injury, that number has been exasperated. They're inconsistent with the free throw shooting, and that's pretty much what it lies. That's pretty much it. Now, looking at the road to the Final Four, they get Howard in the first round, who won their first 4 matchup against UMBC. I think they'll win that game pretty easily. Then they got the 8-9 matchup against Georgia and St. Louis. If it's St. Louis, could be a bit of a challenge. We got Robbie Avila on the other end of that of that matchup. The Sweet 16, who knows? I mean, that could be Texas Tech. Alabama, as you mentioned, just lost a second leader scoring due to an off the court incident. He was arrested. And we're not sure if he would be available against Hofstra, both five, by the way.
Let me just repeat. He
probably won't be available.
Has already basically said they're preparing for him. He's currently not at the school right now. He has been dismissed from the team.
Okay, so that open. All right, so that CCC match could be Texas Tech. Second team, Iowa State could be interesting. Virginia as well. But I wouldn't call this the easiest of the 1 seed pass, but I do think this is the one that may present the least challenge. because Michigan, I think, is that good of a team across the board. I do think they might have a down game, which might be the only way to get upset. But I do see Michigan kind of getting out of this region, not easily, but I don't really see them being pushed to the limit as I see the one seeds in the East and in the South region.
A lot of going through the motions, though, in that Purdue game, and it's interesting to see. You can look at it in terms of losing LJ Kaysen, because Elliot Cadeau, who Jay knows very well from the time in UNC, there was really nothing left of that offense when they didn't have the backup point guard on there. Their big men was not really looking great. They didn't really improve. They didn't really use the size advantage that they had really well. Those are questions to kind of look out for. But this is probably a good elixir here because there are flaws abound in this half of the bracket for Michigan. They got a little bit of a break. But again, when it comes to tournament time, could be completely different, especially with that Texas
Yeah,
Tech team.
yeah, and you just mentioned the Purdue game. It could just be a case of just a bad afternoon. I mean, it happens.
And the
Or
fact
they,
that they had really nothing to gain out of that game except possibly a move up to the number two overall seed. And actually, that wasn't going to happen. So really, there was nothing really to gain out of that game at all for Michigan, to be completely honest.
No.
So we'll see what happens. But Jay, the
Mm-hmm.
second seeded Iowa State Cyclones are an enigma, wrapped in a mystery, wrapped in another enigma, put in a gift bag. In this year alone, they've won by 23 at Purdue, lost by 21 at Kansas, lost by 9 against TCU, looked like the second best team in the nation in a shootout against Arizona. But with the Bible Belt of Death, my new tag team nickname, Anthony, come let me know. With the Bible Belt of Death trio of Virginia, Tennessee, and Kentucky waiting, is the Iowa State Cyclones going to wreck through the competition and head to the regional in Chicago on a high note, Jay?
The bottom half of the Midwest region is intriguing, as you've kind of alluded to already. Three teams in Ken Palm's top 20, one of the bluest of blue blood programs. Number 2 seed Iowa State, Ken Palm number 6, has been an AP top 10 team all season. Lost to eventual Big 12 tournament champ Arizona on a buzzer beater in the Big 12 semis in one of the best games of the season. Number 3, Virginia, Ken Palm number 13, has been a top 25 team since week 6 and has been the ACC's second best team all season, losing to Duke in a nail biter of an ACC title game. Number 6 seed Tennessee, Ken Palm number 16, has spent most of the season in the top 25, while fellow SEC school number 7 seed Kentucky, Ken Palm number 28, has had an un-Kentucky-like season, which makes this the toughest of my 4 regional bracket halves to figure out. This is the Forrest Gump box of chocolate half of the Midwest. You're not quite sure what you're going to get from these teams, but I'll try and break it down for you. Let's start with number 2 Iowa State and number 15 Tennessee State. This is the easiest place to start. Tennessee State is in the big dance for the first time in 32 years, led by an offense that has a pair of 17-point per game scorers in forward Aaron Nkrumah, 17.6 points per game, 35.2 from 3, and guard Travis Harper, 17.3 points per game, 40.1 from 3. And a defense that forces turnovers on 20% of their opponent's possessions, number 24 in the nation, largely due to their 9.4 steals per game, keyed by Nkrumah's conference-leading 2.8 steals per game. Could they give the Cyclones an opening round test? Maybe, if they land the first punch and force TJ Otzelberger's squad to play from behind for a stretch. But at the end of the day, Iowa State just has too much on both sides of the ball. Led by senior Tamin Lipsey, a 3-time Big 12 all-defensive team selection who averages 2.2 steals per game. They rank number 6 in adjusted defensive efficiency, and their 22.4% turnover rate ranks 4th in the nation. The offense, which ranks 21st in adjusted offensive efficiency, 18th in effective field goal percentage, 11th in three-point percentage, is led by a dynamic pair of forwards, Junior Milan Momklivovic, one of the greatest three-point shooters I've seen in a long time, who averages 17.1 points per game. He shoots 51.2% from the floor, 49.6% from three. That's tops in the Big 12. He has a ridiculous 67.9% effective field goal percentage, also tops in the Big 12. And he's paired with senior Joshua Jefferson, who averages 16.9 points, 7.6 rebounds, 4.9 assists, 1.7 steals per game, and is an All-American candidate, as well as a first-team All-Big 12 selection after becoming the first Big 12 player to ever record multiple triple-doubles in league play. Throw in Lipsey's 13 points per game, 4 boards, and 5 dimes, and you know why the Cyclones can beat you from all angles when they have the ball. They're not perfect. They're the worst free throw shooting team in the Big 12 and among the worst in the nation, number 341 at 67.2%. And they're so-so on the glass. They rank 44th in offensive rebound rate, 69th in defensive rebound rate. But this is a team that won 10 games by 30-plus points, including 4 in conference play. They went undefeated in non-conference play, but lost 6 conference games. That tells you what kind of a gauntlet the Big 12 was. And any team that can survive that has a really good chance at a run to the Final Four. No disrespect to Horizon League champion Wright State or whomever comes out of the Miami, Ohio versus SMU first 4 game, which is going on as we come to you right now. And the Red Hawks are up 75-66 as we narrow down to almost the 4-minute mark. And honestly, if they advance, that would be a great story getting to continue for at least another game. But I don't expect any bracket busting to happen in this pod. So let's move on to the second round matchup where we could see a lower seed advance. And that's number 3 Virginia versus number 6 Tennessee. The Cavaliers may have had one of the quietest 29-win seasons a power conference team has produced in a very long time. The ACC's second best team, led by National Coach of the Year candidate Ryan Odom, took Duke down to the wire in the ACC Conference Tournament title game, losing by 4. Like the UVA teams of the Tony Bennett era, Odom's version hangs their hat on a suffocating defense, ranking 15th nationally in adjusted defensive efficiency, number 5 in effective field goal defense, and behind the rim protection, and forgive me if I mispronounce these names, Ugana Oyonoso, a 7-foot senior from Nigeria, who averaged an ACC best 3 blocks per game, good for second in the nation, and getting 2.2 blocks from another foreign big, 7-foot German freshman Johann Grunlow. UVA led the nation during the regular season with 6.5 blocks per game, and their 17.5% block rate was number 2 in the nation. Offensively, led by 6'9 freshman forward Tess DeRieder and his 15.8 points per game and 6.2 rebounds. Virginia is efficient, number 29 in adjusted offensive efficiency, number 52 in effective field goal percentage, top 65 in 2-point percentage and 3-point percentage. But the only thing worth writing home about is they grab almost 38% of their misses, ranking 10th in offensive rebound rate. The Cavaliers will beat lesser teams largely because they don't beat themselves, but when they run into teams that are a level of above, they won't be able to run any further. Like Virginia, Tennessee hangs their hat on their defense, which is among the best in the nation, ranking number 13 in adjusted defensive efficiency. The Vols led the SEC in scoring defense. They allowed just 69.2 points per game and was second in both opponents' field goal percentage and in defensive efficiency. Nationally, top 40 in effective field goal percentage defense, top 25 in 3-point percentage defense. On the offensive end, top 35 in adjusted offensive efficiency, led by senior point guard Jacoby Gillespie and his team leading 18 points per game, along with 5.5 assists, second in the SEC, and 2.1 steals. He's paired with freshman forward Nate Ament, 17.5 points and 6.6 boards, whom the Vols hope to have back from the ankle injury he sustained on February 28th by the time this matchup rolls around, if not sooner. The Vols aren't a great shooting team, 161st in the nation in 2-point percentage, 204th in 3-point percentage, and 288th in free throw percentage, but they make up for it by getting after their misses, better than just about anyone. SEC's second best offensive rebounding team, they averaged almost 16 O-boards a game, and they were number 1 nationally in offensive rebound rate at 45.3%. Ament's injury was the latest in a host of others that had Tennessee playing shorthanded down the stretch, which saw them lose 3 of their final 4 regular season games and ultimately fall to Vanderbilt in the SEC quarters. This likely dropped the Vols at least 1, maybe 2 seed lines, so they might be a bit underseeded as a number 6. If Ament is good to go, Tennessee, which has wins over Houston, Louisville, Alabama, and Vanderbilt, can compete with anybody. Rick Barnes has led the Vols to the second weekend in each of the last 3 seasons, including consecutive Elite Eight appearances. I see them extending that second weekend streak, knocking off Virginia. I have to talk about Kentucky versus Santa Clara. Like St. Mary's versus Texas A&M in the South region, this number 7 versus number 10 should be interesting, but I don't see it impacting Iowa State's road to the regional finals. Let's start with the SEC Blue Blood, who's played like anything but this season. They have some nice wins, St. John's, Tennessee twice, Arkansas, and Vanderbilt, but they come into the big dance on a 4-6 slide with half of the losses coming to Florida, and they've ranked 83rd in adjusted offensive efficiency since the calendar flipped to March. All SEC second-team guard Ortega Awe is one of the better two-way players, and his 18.2 points per game gives the Cats a solid number 1 offensive option. But after that, like this half of the bracket, Kentucky is that box of chocolates. You don't know what you're going to get. They get to the rim, they score 49% of the points inside the arc, and they get on the offensive glass, 33.8% offensive rebound rate, but they're average beyond the arc, ranking 170th, and at the line, they rank 177th. They tend to leave points on the court, and their three-point defense has been trending the wrong way for the last month, allowing opponents to hit it at almost a 36% clip from 3, which is 238th in the nation in that span. For these reasons, I can see Santa Clara, whose inclusion in the field gives the WCC 3 teams for only the second time since 2013. I see them pulling the upset here. Steve Nash U is making their first trip to the big dance since the 2-time NBA MVP was on the team 30 years ago. They have the WCC's number 1 offense. Yes, not Gonzaga or St. Mary's. Led by guard Christian Hammond, 15.8 points, 40% from 3, and forward Allen Graves, 11.6 points, 6.5 boards. He shoots 51.7% from the floor, 62% of the rim, and he drops threes at 41.6%. They shoot a little under 35% from 3 as a team and 56.5% from 2 and are pretty good getting their misses. Their 36.7% offensive rebound rate is 19th in the nation. They force turnovers at a little over 20%, top 25 in the nation, and hold opponents to 33% from 3. If they can do that to Kentucky and prevent the Wildcats from taking advantage of a Santa Clara defense that struggles otherwise, they rank 245th or worse in defensive rebound rate, 2-point percentage defense, and free throw percentage allowed. The Broncos should be able to pull the upset, but this is as far as they go, which brings us to number 2 Iowa State versus number 6 Tennessee. All of this is me, once again, taking the long way around to get to another irresistible force versus immovable object matchup with Iowa State and Tennessee. The Cyclones' 3 Musketeers are as good as any in the nation. Each complements the other 2, and they'll give the Cyclones just enough to get out of this half of the bracket and make the regional final. But I have a sneaking suspicion that waiting for them in the Elite Eight will be the fully operational Big Ten Death Star known as the Michigan Wolverines. Teams with size can be a problem for the Cyclones, and the Wolverines take size to a whole different level.
And we'll talk about that more when we get to our picks afterwards. I will have to say this. Tennessee does not impress me in any way, shape, or form, especially over the last month. They are 2-4. Pair of losses to Vanderbilt. Yes, they did win against Vanderbilt by 4, but then they had a pair of losses. And every game I think I've seen them end this year, they blew a big lead to Kentucky on the road. They blew a big lead at home to Alabama. They've lost against Kansas. That's a team. They have a big win over Houston on their schedule, but I really, really do not like this team. I don't like Kentucky either. I think both of those teams are ridiculously flawed, and what I think has been outside of 4 teams are ridiculously flawed SEC the entire year. I think if you watched the first 4 last night with Texas, you would kind of get the deal. We'll talk about that in our last segment when we get to BYU. All right. Jay, again, did talk a little bit about Santa Clara, but didn't hit on all of the points. I'll talk about that now. That's my bracket buster, the 10 seed in this region. Again, 30 years since this team has been in this situation.
Right?
By the way, this is the last year of Gonzaga in the WCC.
Yeah.
No one is going to miss them as they head over to the new and improved Pac-12 next year.
Don't say improved. It may be new, but it's not improved. I'm sorry. I hate to invoke the late Bill Walton here, but the original iteration of the Pac-12 was the Conference of Champions. This one will be a shadow
You
of
can
that.
be improved of 2 teams because technically it was the Pac-2 until now. So anyway, moving on into that.
Wow, going for quantity over quality, huh, partner?
Yes, Herb Sedek is the head coach of Santa Clara, and he's been there for 10 years. He was at NC State. He was a former assistant of Rick Pitino at Kentucky in 1989, which is insane on how much he's been there. But Sedek's Broncos have surpassed the 20-plus win mark 6 times in his tenure, and this is his best team record-wise ever. As Jay mentioned before, 38th offensively in the nation, 83 points per game. Not great defensively. They're in the middle of the pack at 136, 72.4 points per game. But they're better than the Wildcats are offensively and defensively in points per game versus points allowed. They do shoot a little bit better from 3-point lines, 34.6%. Christian Hammond and Allen Graves are both 40% and better from beyond the arc. They have a team that has scored double figures on average in Hammond, Graves, and Mahi off of that team as well, Elijah Mahi. And you have a possible NBA draft player on that team in Allen Graves. Not a fully established product, but even though he fouls a lot, 8.9 fouls per 100 possessions, this is a team, though, that is really, really ready to do it. They are efficient as hell. Let's mention again, 35th in KenPom, the 23rd most efficient offense in the nation. Again, defense is okay. They're at 82nd. They have basically on the floor, though, 73% of its minutes is basically right there. So it's not a deep team at all, but they are very good in so many different things. Offensive rebounds, 36.4% of the time. That's 19th nationally. So they're a big time problem in getting second half points. They do not turn the ball over, and they force the turnovers big time. They rank 17th in the nation in forcing turnovers on defense. They've beaten St. Mary's twice this year, and they're in this bracket as well. They have a very good resume on their list. They did make it to the WCC championship game, losing to Gonzaga, but they have wins over non-conference opponents like Xavier, Nevada, Minnesota, and I think Kentucky could be the next team on that list. We'll see how that goes. I believe that game is on Friday. I have to look there for a second. That game is on Friday afternoon. Okay. Moving over to the game I'm looking to watch. That's Texas Tech and the other team from the MAC, the one that actually won the conference tournament. That's Akron. Texas Tech. It's sad what happened by losing JT Toppin, to a torn ACL on February 17th. He was an AP All-American first team member on Tuesday. Remember, he didn't play the end of the entire last month of the season. That team had 4 wins over top 11 opponents, including the last team to beat Arizona and the first team to beat Duke this season. But losing Toppin, you lose 21 points per game, 10.8 rebounds and 1.7 shot blockers. He probably could have easily been the National Player of the Year. He won a game at Arizona on Valentine's Day night, essentially by himself, winning that game in overtime. That was right after they lost to Kansas and gave Arizona their second loss of the year. But this team does still have Christian Anderson. He'll be on the court. He has 18.9 points per game and 7.6 assists per game. He slipped on the great glass court of the Big 12, that LED court that only Iowa State's coach, apparently TJ Ossenberger, apparently liked. They got rid of it for the semifinals and beyond, but looks like he'll be fine. LaJawn Watts will probably be also expected to play in this game. He also left the Texas Tech Iowa State game with an injury as well. But without Toppin, they still won at Iowa State, 82-73, and they didn't have him in that. At least they didn't have them in that game. So Texas Tech is still a very dangerous opponent, which is why they didn't fall down to like 7 or 8. They fell to 5 because of the fact that this team still has a little bit of a ceiling. Now, Akron, they're 29-5, but again, obviously, Miami of Ohio was the team out there, 31-0, but the only team that beat Akron in the regular season in conference was Miami of Ohio. And so Akron won against Toledo in the MAC championship game, a very good game in which they came back from a 12-point deficit and won 79-76. Mac Shin is back. Wally Zerbiak is actually calling the tournament for CBS, so that's an interesting thought. And this is a multi-bid league for the first time since 1999. Zips have won 19 out of their last 20. They're helmed by MAC leading scorer Tavari Johnson, 20 plus points per game. Also fifth in the league in assists per game, by the way, with 5. They also have Amani Lyles, 14.6 points per game, 8 rebounds a game. That team is seventh nationally in scoring offense, over 88 points per game, and 10th in field goal accuracy at 50.3%. Now, the Zips have never really done well in the tournament. They are 0-3 under John Gross, who, by the way, got into the Sweet 16 with Ohio back in the day in 2011, I believe. Texas Tech made the Elite Eight last season, 4 Sweet 16s in the past 8 seasons. Grant McCaslin has done a very good job, but if you're searching for that nice little 5/12, this might be it, because Akron ain't going anywhere. And as we know, the MAC is as strong as it's ever been. And that's a lie that I barely thought anybody would say. So We'll see what happens. But I really like this Akron matchup against Texas Tech. They will also be playing on Friday afternoon. All right, let's go west, old men, to our final bracket preview, and that is the number 1 seed in this bracket. They are the Arizona Wildcats, who are perfect, save for 2 games in the second week of February. They're the toughest conference in the nation. Some are saying it. Many are saying it, Anthony. Sports Illustrated is definitely saying it, that's for sure. That is the regular season and Big 12 conference champions in Arizona. A lot of people think they're the favorite to win the national title, but damn, they did not get an easy road, Jay. Sharpshooting teams like Arkansas, Wisconsin, and even High Point. So to get to San Jose, what does Arizona need to do to get to the Elite Eight and farther?
Yeah, the top half of the West region puts number 1 seed Arizona, one of 3 teams along with Duke and Michigan that can claim to be a fully operational Death Star, in a pretty decent position to advance to the regional final, as there is only one other team in this half that's in Ken Palm's top 15. That would be number 4 seed Arkansas, Ken Palm's number 15th ranked team, and the SEC tournament runners-up, who will likely have to deal with the only other team in Ken Palm's 25, in number 5 seed Wisconsin. Ken Palm, number 22, has one of the best backcourts in the nation. Number 1 Arizona opens against number 16 LIU. I'm not going to waste too much time on this one. While LIU, led by former Knicks point guard Rod Strickland, who got his New York City hoop cred while at Harry Truman High School in the Bronx, may be the Sharks of the NEC, winning the regular season by 3 games behind the best defense in the conference. They're nothing but minnows outside of it. They got eaten alive by Illinois, 98-58, and Georgia, 89-74 in non-conference play. They are number 216 in Ken Palm. Their net rating is minus 3.96. And in Bart Torvik, they're number 271. And in offensive adjusted rating, and number 196 in adjusted defensive rating. That is not a resume you want to bring to a matchup against what may be the most complete team in the tournament. And it's why Arizona, led by Big 12 Player of the Year, Jaden Bradley, 13.3 points, 4.5 dimes, 40+% from 3. All Big 12 first team selections. Braden Burries, 15.9 points, 4.7 boards, and Mo Krivis, 10.5 points, 8.1 boards, plus all Big 12 freshman team selection. Koa Pete, 13.6 points, 5.3 boards. Why those guys will easily knock off LIU. The 8-9 game, Villanova versus Utah State. In my opinion, and this is just me, this is the weakest of the number 8 versus number 9 matchups in terms of the winner being a threat to the number 1 seed in the next round. Villanova, back in the big dance after a 3-year drought, was third in the Big East and not really a threat to SJU or UConn, losing to each twice in the regular season. The Wildcats from Philly are a solid squad. They have 5 players averaging double figures in points per game, but they're only between 10 and 13.7. But there isn't anything that has me thinking they get out of the first weekend. They're top 50 in the nation in both adjusted offensive and defensive efficiency. They're a good 3-point shooting team, 35.3%, but not a great one. 100th, that's 100th in the nation. Utah State in the NCAAs for the 4th straight year is the only Mountain West team to make the field. Regular season and tournament champs, they have a dynamic backcourt that can score the basketball. MJ Collins, 17.6 points per game, and Mason Foslev, 16.1 points per game, combined to score 33.5 points and hit threes at a combined 38.1 clip in the regular season. And despite the lack of interior size, the Aggies did grab an offensive rebound at an eye-popping 33.8% of their possessions. And on defense, they turned opponents over on a more than respectable 20.3% of defensive positions. I think they have enough to get past Nova, but some of their trends down the stretch are concerning, and any one of them could spell their doom against Arizona. In their final 8 regular season games, Utah State was ranked 210th in points per possession allowed, 235th in effective field goal defense, and 355th in defensive rebound percentage. They also allowed opponents to shoot 36.6% from 3. That all spells one and done for Utah State. Number 4, number 5, the Arizona-Arkansas matchup. And this is, I know that some folks think both Arkansas and Wisconsin are ripe for upsets here. The Athletics bracket buster model gives High Point a 35% upset chance due to the Panthers' ability to win the possession game, number 5 in the nation, both avoiding and forcing turnovers. And the Badgers' over-reliance on three-point shots. 35.2% of their field goal attempts are from 3. And their inability to get extra possessions via offensive rebounds or forcing turnovers. But I'm going to go chalk here because, A, I think SEC tournament champ Arkansas, led by point guard Darius Acuff Jr., the SEC Player of the Year, who is on a Kemba Walker-like heater, putting up 28.5 points per game and 6.5 assists while shooting 50% from 3 over his last 8 games, will outlast the Rainbow Warriors from Hawaii in their top 50 defense. And 2, March is made for guards, and Wisconsin has 2 of the best in the nation in Nick Boyd and John Blackwell, who combine for almost 40 points per game. Whomever comes out of this game is a real threat to Arizona getting out of this half of the West region. Whenever John Calipari has had a legit star at the point guard position, one who has NBA first-round draft pick written all over him, he's made some deep tournament runs. National title game with Derrick Rose at Memphis in 2008. A pair of Elite 8 runs with John Wall in 2010 and De'Aaron Fox in 2017 when they were running the point at Kentucky, and a Sweet 16 appearance with SGA in 2018. Acuff Jr. is having the best season a point guard has ever had under Calipari. Per ESPN research, he's just the second D1 freshman in the last 20 years after Trae Young to have 3 regular season games with 20-plus points and 10-plus assists. And with him in the controls, the Razorbacks have hit the 100-point mark in 4 games this season. He's the first SEC player since Pete Maravich to lead the conference in scoring and assists, and his ability to create advantages leads to clean catch and shoot looks for his teammates, which is why Arkansas is top 20 in the nation in 3-point percentage at 38.1. The Razorbacks have some defensive issues. They allow opponents to shoot almost 69% at the rim. They rank 237th in defensive rebound rate, but neither of these things play to the strength of Wisconsin's offense, which is their aforementioned starting backcourt. Boyd and Blackwell are among the best all-around guards in the nation. They can both score off the bounce, knock down threes, and set up shots for their teammates. Combined, they shoot over 36.1% from the arc, over 80% from the line. They combine for over 6 assists and 8.5 rebounds per game. They also prioritize ball security, which is why the Badgers own the 3rd lowest turnover rate in the nation. This should be a high-scoring affair, and while the Badgers' defense may be somewhat suspect during the final month of the regular season, they rank north of 250th in effective field goal percentage defense, and they allowed a ghastly 1.021 points per possession. If Boyd and Blackwell play like they have all season, they should take out the Razorbacks. Remember, playing big-time programs does not faze the Badgers. They have road wins this year at Michigan, at Purdue, and at Illinois. Those 3 teams are a 1, a 2, and a 3 seed in the NCAA tournament, which leads me to Arizona versus Wisconsin. The Badgers are going to give the Wildcats a run for their money. And while Arizona is not unbeatable, Tommy Lloyd's squad has no weaknesses. They're top 5 in offensive efficiency, top 3 in defensive efficiency. They allow only 0.893 points per possession during the regular season, third best mark in the nation. They beat 12 ranked teams this season, including Florida, UConn, Alabama, Houston, and Kansas, tying Duke for the most ever heading into an NCAA tournament. And that's why I see the Wildcats making it all the way to the regional final. Oh, and should they cut down the nets in Indianapolis, Arizona would become the most statistically dominant team to ever win the national title with a 37.66 pre-NCAA Tournament Ken Palm efficiency margin. That's slightly above last year's national champs Florida, who came in at 36.2, and 2019 national champ Virginia, who came in at 35.7.
And they would be the first team since Arizona to win the national title from west of the middle of the nation. Literally, if you split the nation in half, the Baylor's just on the other side of it, but everybody else would be on one side of it. No, Darren Acuff needs to be in the tournament as long as possible. So as much as I love Wisconsin,
he is fun to watch.
He has been amazing, and the fact that you can call him legitimately the best statistical season ever under John Calipari as a guard is kind of
that's saying something.
You think about
considering who the other guys I mentioned before him.
Man, all right. Anthony, our final 2 seed to look at is the 2 seed of the West and the Purdue Boilermakers. By the way, Iowa State was a 5 seed in the road conference tournament. Purdue was a 7 seed in the road Big Ten conference tournament. And for the first time in the history of the NCAA tournament selection committee, they actually paid attention to the Big Ten championship game and moved Purdue a seed lineup because of the Big Ten championship game. Oh my God, we're not complaining about the NCAA committee this year. It's amazing. All right, with possibilities of West Coast powers in BYU and Gonzaga in this part of the West regionals, and a possible second-round date with Missouri in St. Louis, of all places, on the horizon, ask FDU. It's never easy for Purdue in the NCAA tournament. And in this half of the bracket, not different either.
No, I mean, look at the Boilermakers. I mean, you want to pick a good time to start playing your best basketball, and the conference tournament is definitely just that. When they're on, they're the number two offensive team as far as adjusted efficiency in the regular season, 131.6, and obviously Matt Painter's teams, they're always led by a veteran group. And you gotta think of Braden Smith. That's the guy you think of almost immediately. A chance to break Bobby Hurley's NCAA career assist record. And he's already the only player in NCAA history to have 3 seasons of 450 points, 250 assists, and 100 rebounds in a season. However, there's a reason why they lost 8 games, and that's because of consistency. Particularly the defensive end. 226 nationally defensive efficient field goal percentage, 228th nationally enforced turnover percentage at 15.9. This excuse me just a second. Fletcher Lawyer in particular struggled. He second leading scorer, but also finished in 12 or 20 games, scoring less than 10 points those games. 10 points those games. And all to talk about the Boilermakers peak at the right time, they look those nice when they look bad, and they're nice when they look like a team that could be a dangerous out in the NCAA tournament. Think about this. Early in the season, they won at Alabama. They won by 30 against Texas Tech. They won by 28 over Auburn, and they just won the Big Ten tournament. And now you're relying on the vets as far as muscle memory to be able to go back to a deep run and to fight off the inconsistency. Like I said, best time they pick the right time to play their best basketball. Now look at their tournament, their road to at least get to the regional finals. They play number 15 Queens on this week, their first game. By the way, kids, that's Queens of North Carolina, not Queens of New York, since we are a local New York show. I have to put that out there. In the second round, Miami, Missouri is the definition of a rock fight because Miami relies heavy on twos, and Missouri has Missouri they bang it up on the inside as well. And give me just a second, I just had to stats up for a moment. And we look at Missouri, Mark Mitchell, 18.9 points a game. It's a big person who bangs up on the inside. None of these teams shoot threes. If they do shoot them, it's not all that well. So if you are the variety that complains about the NBA game and relying too much on the 3-point game, this game may be for you. Because neither of these teams shoot all that well. But this is also a likely upset game too. You always talk about the 8-9 matchups. 7-10 matchups are one of those matchups that always seem to have an upset in there. And I do think this is the one 7-10 matchup that could be an upset. However, I do think Purdue get through the first two rounds of this of this tournament of the region, which basically gets you to the Sweet 16. And this is where I do think they see number 3 Gonzaga. Um, Obviously the ninth team come up the ninth straight 30-win season, suffocating defense. Graham Ike, WCC Player of the Year honors, 19.7 points a game. This is this is a team that can really score, but when they do have their off nights, they're not a great 3-point shooting team as well. So for Purdue, it actually lines up in the fact they can get literally 3 straight opponents that don't shoot the outside shot all that well. That could be to their advantage. However, I do think when they get to the regional final, I don't think it'd be enough to get past Arizona. I just think the Wildcats are too good of a team. They have on both ends of both sides of the ball. So I do see Purdue getting out of their part of the bracket. I don't see them getting out of the region. I do think Arizona is a better team in the West region.
And without Braden Huff, who Gonzaga's been missing pretty much for the whole entire duration of 2026, I don't think Gonzaga is a strong 3 seed at all. By the way, how would you be if you're Bobby Hurley right now? You lost your job at Arizona State a couple weeks ago, unfortunately, and now you're going to watch the tournament and you're going to watch this kid, Braden Smith, very likely break your record in the opening round of the tournament. I'm sorry, Bobby. Enjoy your brother of the madness because you're not having any fun right now as you're looking for resumes to find your next job. All right, we move on to the final portion of the night. And I didn't have a lot of teams to look for in a dark horse here. So I'm just going to go with a team that I just kind of like a lot, and that's BYU. And you're being like, you're crazy. That was the 10th best team in the Big 12 this year, record-wise. I know, but not all of those teams has AJ DeBonsa, who is as advertised this year. He is the nation's leading scorer with 25.3 points per game, and he is capable of being a one-man show in the tournament. You talk about guard play, yeah, you got this. This is the guy here because DeBonsa expectations are higher. They're going to play the Longhorns on Thursday, and ironically enough, DeBonsa models his game after Kevin Durant. Durant is a graduate of Texas, so it's going to be a very interesting dynamic. DeBonsa, in a 3-game span against Kansas State, West Virginia, and Houston, scored a big single tournament Big 12 record of 93 points, averaging 31 a game. This is a guy who is going to have to do a lot because they lost their starter, BYU lost their starter, Richie Saunders, to an ACL injury on Valentine's Day. Big loss, but when you just look at DeBonsa and this entire team, just think of the runs that you can have on this team. They flounder defensively. They do have Rob Wright the third on there, but it's just a team that is very efficient. They can rebound. They do have a negative 3-point percentage differential, but they're consistently just a team that can just beat you with the right matchups. And honestly, the bracket kind of falls for them in the right way, I think. They're the 6th seed. You beat Texas. You get a kind of short-handed Gonzaga team in the round of 32 that puts you on line with the Purdue team who hasn't been consistent themselves at all this year. Anthony just mentioned the stats. They've had multiple losing streaks this year. They lost 3 in a row at one point to UCLA, Illinois, and Indiana. And then they lost 3 in a row, including a loss to Ohio State. I mean, this is possible for BYU to make a run. It's one of those defying logic expectations, but I think that's the best way to go out of this region if you're looking for a 5 or under to make a run. However, Wisconsin and High Point, if you like that Miami Missouri game where it's going to be a rock fight, this is not the rock fight. This is Wisconsin and High Point. This is going to be exactly what you expect the game to be in 2026. High Point, 90 points per game. That is 3rd in Division I in ranking. They have a 14-game winning streak. It is now, because of Miami's loss in the conference tournament, that's the nation's longest active winning streak. Wisconsin, 83 points per game, which for Wisconsin is like 170 points per game if you go back to the Bo Ryan era. That's 35th in the nation, and their highest scoring squad in, do the math, 55 seasons. But Wisconsin has been a 5 seed before. In fact, the last 3 times they've been a 5 seed, they've been out of the tournament. They lost 2 years ago as a 5 to James Madison. Badgers, of course, as we mentioned before, Nick Boyd, 2nd team All Big Ten, 20.6 points, 4.2 assists. John Blackwell, 3rd team selection, 19 points, 4.9 rebounds, 2.3 assists. Both put up superhuman efforts last week. Boyd dropped 35, Blackwell dropped 31. It became the school's first 30-point duo in a game since 1968. Where are we in terms of the time warp here? Boyd, by the way, started 37 games and averaged 8.9 points for Florida Atlantic in their Final Four year of 2022-2023. Wisconsin, they could welcome back forward Nolan Winter. That's just another 13.3 point per game. And Jack Janicki, who was sidelined during the Big Ten tournament. However, High Point, they got some guards too. Rob Martin, 15.3 points, 3.7 assists per game. Terry Anderson, 16 and 6. Cameron Fletcher, 12.7 and 6.9. That's a top of the 8-man rotation. Fletcher started his career 6 years ago at Kentucky. Wisconsin made the 2nd most 3-pointers in the nation this year, 400. Only Alabama did more, 405. They have 6 players who average at least 1 make per game. Wisconsin is like a Tommy gun, firing in all directions, and they don't care if they miss, but usually they do not. Again, they are 14-5 in their last 19 games. Again, the 5-12 is an insane part of the time. 35.6% of the time, the 12 seeds beat the 5 seeds since 1985. Colorado State and McNeese both won their games last year. Wouldn't be surprised if High Point did the same, but whoo boy, strap in for this game, kids. It should be very interesting. They are the early game tomorrow. If you were watching this right before the tournament, that's the early game today. Enjoy that game a lot. That's what March Madness is to be. All right. Now, just like the NCAA's Finals Fours in Indianapolis, once every 5 years, our predictions for the Final Four are spot on. So, is this the year? You're about to find out. Anthony, starting with yourself, give me your predictions for the Final Four.
You know what? I am going to actually go chalk, which I almost never do, but I look at it like this. I think Duke, even though they got a murderous roll on that half the bracket, and we talked about this ad nauseam at this point, I do think Duke has enough to get out of their region. Arizona and Michigan, I mean, you can kind of flip a coin on which one is the most complete team of the two, but I do think they get into the Final Four as well. Florida was the one that I was kind of back and forth on because at the possibility of playing Houston in their backyard as far as as far as the regional final. But I think back to great broadcaster Joe Davis as far as what you do to defending champs. To beat the champ, you gotta knock them out, and you can have a home court all you want, but unless Houston actually knocks out the defending champs, I'm going to put my money on Florida. So I'm going with the 4-1 seeds to be in the Final Four.
Wow.
All right, Jay, chalk it up.
All right. I'm gonna got a little preface before I get into my picks. Ken Pomeroy, the human being behind Ken Pom, has been tracking adjusted efficiency ratings and margins since 1997, and he has a magic number that qualifies a team as truly elite, plus 35. A team with that net rating would be expected to outscore the average team by 35 points per 100 possessions. Only 10 teams have ever finished the year above plus 35. All have made the Final Four. 4 of the 10 were the 4 number 1 seeds from last season. I picked 3 of them en route to winning the pool that I was in. Duke, Michigan, and Arizona all finished above that mark this season. In fact, all 3 finished above plus 37. I had my Final Four set before I came across that stat. So what comes next is just confirmation of what I felt were some Captain Obvious picks. East, Duke. The Blue Devils were 2 possessions away from having an undefeated regular season. In the final 7 games of ACC play, Duke rained utter destruction down on everyone in their path, outscoring opponents by nearly 26 points per game. They're one of 3 fully operational Death Star teams in this tournament. I gave you all the reasons why when I looked at their half of the region. As much as it pains this Tar Heel fan to say it, just like last season, I can't see the Blue Devils not making the Final Four. West, Arizona. The Wildcats are the second of 3 fully operational Death Star teams. They've been one of the most clutch teams in college basketball, going 6-2 in games decided by 1 or 2 possessions. 4 of those wins over teams that are seeded 1 or 2 in this tournament. Florida, UConn, Iowa State, Houston. Then there's this stat, which pretty much clinched it for me. The Wildcats have allowed only 2 kill shots. That's allowing a run of 10 or more all season. One came in garbage time of a 98-61 blowout over Norfolk State. The other in the Big 12 tournament championship game win over Houston. The Wildcats responded to a 14-0 run from the Cougars by scoring on 6 of their next 7 possessions. No team has been more consistent from game to game. They're indie bound. South, Houston. The Cougars were 1 possession away from cutting down the Nets last season. And while this may not be Houston's best defense under Kelvin Sampson, this version of the Cougars has the best combination of top-tier defense that we've come to expect, NBA-level talent in Flemings, veterans in the backcourt, and game-changing length in the front court. They may not have won the Big 12, and they're a tick below that magic Ken Pom net rating number of plus 35. They finished the season at plus 33.37. But they are one of 5 teams with a top 15 adjusted offensive and defensive efficiency rankings per Ken Pom. So they're fully capable of getting back to the Final Four, especially with that home court advantage. And finally, out of the Midwest, Michigan. The Wolverines are the third of 3 fully operational Death Star teams. Dusty May figured out how to play 3 bigs in 7'3" center at Amara, 6'9" power forward Morez Johnson Jr., and 6'9" do-everything forward Yaxel Lendeborg, the Big Ten Player of the Year, which led to Michigan being number 2 in the nation in adjusted defensive efficiency, number 1 in effective field goal percentage defense, number 3 in block rate, number 4 in 2-point percentage defense, and number 10 in 3-point percentage defense. Pair that with an offense that's number 6 in adjusted efficiency, number 9 in effective field goal percentage, and number 2 in 2-point percentage. And even though they lost 6-man extraordinaire LJ Kasem, which gives them a slightly smaller margin for error, the Maize and Blues still have enough to make it to Indy.
All right, so I'm going to go with the West and Midwest sides first. The West, I think my lock of the locks is Arizona here. I don't like the region that Arizona surrounds, and Arizona, I think, has been the best team in the nation pretty much all year. Again, They've lost literally 2 games this entire season. They lost them both on the same week, and they lost because of Bill Self's Big Monday record, which he's still undefeated in Kansas at home on Big
Fear
Monday,
the fog.
and lost to Jacob Toppin, who is currently not playing right now. Arizona looked really good in the Big 12 tournament, and they survived their close game against Iowa State. The bracket is tough for Arizona, and I think their Sweet 16 matchup against Arkansas or Wisconsin most likely is going to be hell. But the weaker south side of the bracket and just Arizona being that damn good is why I think they're going to win the West. The Midwest, I still like Michigan. Sure, the game against Purdue really scared me a little bit, but honestly, just think Michigan has been so good at their best this entire year. When they play from ahead, they're nearly unbeatable. Even in the close games, like the game they had against Wisconsin last week, they could still win those games. Again, I do like Iowa State a lot on this side, but they're a little too inconsistent for my blood. So even though I see Iowa State getting to the Elite Eight, I still think Michigan is better than them overall. In the South, I like Houston. I think Houston has played very well towards the end of the season, a little bit closer to the team that we saw at the end of last season, at the beginning of this year. And I think Houston is 2 things going for them. Playing the regional right near their campus, although they never really play at the Toyota Center a lot, which is why they didn't have to claim it as their home court. Rice got to. And the fact that if Houston and Florida are meeting again in a regional final, I don't think Houston's going to want to lose to this Florida team twice, especially because Clayton Jr. is not on the other side of the court anymore. Houston has the talent, and Houston just matches up with Florida in many different ways. So I do have Houston winning the South. The East is just a clusterfuck on a clusterfuck on a clusterfuck. Duke has all of the makings of the best team in the nation, but they are not fully healthy. And the team that beat Virginia in the ACC final was not the team that spanked Virginia just a week or two before at home. So, with that being said, and the fact that St. John's and Kansas might give them all the hell in the world in the regional, I'm going to take it from the bottom of the bracket. And as much as UConn has played so crap at any points during this season, the best version of UConn can play against any team in the nation. So I'm going to take UConn in the East. The 2s on one side of the bracket, the 1s on the other side of the bracket, and that's my Final Four heading into Indianapolis.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I think this is more of a chalk year, I think, than a lot of other people think, because I think when you get past that top 2 line, there's a little bit of a fall off. But again, it's the madness. Go forth and enjoy it. For Jay Kaplan and Anthony Strait, and my new helper for my brackets this year, where's my 1998 penny? I'll find it eventually. I'm Stephen Rabinowitz. Before you submit that 6th bracket, that'll be dead by Friday night. Subscribe to facebook.com/onthesportslines and watch us live there. Or go to youtube.com/onthesportslines and watch us on demand there. And let's finish off the road to the end of the show, Jay, on X/Twitter.
Yeah, our Twitter handle is at ONTH Sportslines, where you'll find a link to each new show like tonight's, along with tidbits and nuggets in the world of sports that we think are worth your time to check out. Today, I posted a link to a story by CJ Moore, college basketball writer for The Athletic, who has some analytics tips and tricks to help you win your office pool. His first tip: start at the end. Figure out your Final Four, then work backwards. That may sound counterintuitive, but as Moore writes, most brackets aren't won in the first weekend, they're won in the last. The piece is well done and worth the read for anyone with a mind to win their office pool.
You can also lose them in the first weekend, by the way, just a heads up.
Yeah.
All right. Fun stuff for you next week, as we'll see you again, because got a lot of stuff at this time of year. Enjoy the madness. We'll talk to you next week.
Night,
Good night,
everybody.
everyone.